All right, next, the bill we have for consideration is House File 13, Gender Equality Provided for Under the Law and Constitutional Amendment Proposed. I believe I saw Representative Mary Kunesh-Podein come in. Here she is. And I move that Representative Kunesh-Podein's bill, House File 13, be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee. All right. And we have the bill before us, so Representative Kunesh-Podein, welcome to the committee, and please tell us about your bill.
Well, good morning, Madam Chair and members. I am very pleased today to present to you today House File 13. I'm State Representative Mary Kunesh-Podein, and House File 13 proposes a constitutional amendment to add language to the Minnesota Bill of Rights. It specifically addresses Article 1, Section 18, and it will include to provide that equity under the law shall not be abridged or denied on account of gender. And what this bill would do would there would be a question that would be added to the ballot during the election 2020 and allow the voters to decide whether this amendment or this language would appear in our Minnesota Constitution.
All right, thank you very much. And I believe you have some testifiers here in support of the bill. They can go ahead and get started.
Wonderful, thank you. I would like to first ask Dr. Ellen Kennedy, who is a professor at Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law and Executive Director of World Without Genocide, to speak.
Welcome, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, and you may begin.
I am Ellen Kennedy, Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law and World Without Genocide. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I want to begin with a question. Who do you go to the bathroom with? I taught in a college of business for 20 years. One of my wise female colleagues from another department asked me that question 20 years ago. I was the only woman in a faculty department of 10, and I had been the only woman for a very, very long time. What she meant was, who has your back? Who shares information with you? Who can you confide in? I always felt that I had to work longer, harder, and smarter to prove that I was at least equal to the men in the department. And so I did. I worked a lot. I got promoted, praised, and rewarded, but never quite as much as the men. I have now been a professor for more than 40 years. When I started working, women earned 72 cents to the dollar that men earned. Today, it's 78 cents. In 40 years, I've earned 6 cents. I was asked to speak today about what the ERA would do for me. My answer is what the ERA will do for women. Without the ERA, the only right that women have in this country that makes them equal to a man is the right to vote. Without the ERA, we have no permanent guarantee of equality in any area, legal, economic, social, civil, or political. Any laws in our state that give women equal rights with men could be taken away by new state laws at a new time. The ERA for Minnesota would guarantee our equality permanently and constitutionally. The United States is one of only 6 countries on the planet that hasn't ratified the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. The other countries, Iran, Palau, Tonga, Sudan, and Somalia. In this era of Time's Up and #MeToo, it's perfectly clear that women are unequal to men in this country. We don't earn equally. We are harassed, threatened, assaulted, and raped. Title IX is imperiled, and women won't be treated fairly in sexual assault cases on campuses. More than 400,000 rape kits still remain untested in boxes around the country. Perpetrators have impunity for their crimes because women simply don't matter. In the last 20 years, more than 250,000 child marriages have occurred in this country. 84% of those children are young girls who almost always are being married off to older men. Were it not for the cover of marriage, those men would face charges of statutory rape. We women are underrepresented on the bench, in the boardrooms, in the directors' chairs, and in Congress. We are underrepresented and often deliberately put in grave physical danger by male colleagues in professions like construction and mining. Let's bring it home. Recent research documents that location, the actual state where a woman is born and where she lives as an adult, matters for her work and for her pay. A woman's lifelong earnings and how much she works are influenced by the level of sexism in the very state where she was born and lives. 26 states in the United States have some form of equal rights amendment in their constitutions. And as you have just heard, Minnesota does not. Yet we are one of the 37 states that passed the federal ERA bill that has still not yet been enacted. I want this bill, House File 13, to pass in Minnesota because I want Minnesotans to be able to choose to embed the ERA firmly in our state constitution so that state efforts to legislate equality cannot be removed in the future. Women's rights are human rights, and human rights are women's rights. It's time. I am equal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kennedy. And I think what we'll do is go ahead and continue on with the testifiers in support of the bill. So if you could stick around for questions, we'll listen to the supporters, and then we'll have questions, and then we'll call those who oppose the bill and do the same. Oh, yes, sorry.
Ms. Kennedy, I just wanted to, sorry, Madam Chair, and to the testifier, I just want quick, how many states did you say already have an equal rights amendment?
26.
26. Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Just wanted
26.
to make sure I got the number.
Great. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Representative Kunish-Podine.
And I'm wondering if Rosemary Rocco is here? All right. My testifier, Rosemary Rocco, has not been able to make it. Can I call another person to the stand?
You may, yes.
All right. I would like to call Representative Bonner here to testify.
Representative Bonner, welcome to the committee. Go ahead and state your name, please, for us.
Thank you. My name is Representative Bonner. I represent District 34B, Maple Grove and Osseo. Thank you, Madam Chair and members, Representative Kunish-Podine, for allowing me to be here today. Rosemary Rocco, for those of you who do not know, who's actually a constituent of mine and actually played a good role on my campaign as well as my campaign chair. So I have a fairly good understanding of what she would have wanted to cover today. The Equal Rights Amendment is, I think, an issue of critical importance, and I think we've reached the precipice of a turning point in our history in which we've continued down this road. We fought long and hard for hundreds of years to get the right to vote. We fought long and hard to get the right to own property, to be able to open our own bank account, to have a credit card, to be not just considered the property of our male relatives, but as independent individuals with our own rights and liberties of our own. And it's been since 1919, that we actually won the right to vote. We have waited. We have waited. Women have patiently sat on the sidelines and waited for equality under the law. And the largest part of our American population believes that women already are guaranteed under the law equality. And the reality is they are not. We have built this very elaborate set of laws, such as the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, in order to try and ensure fairness and equality. We have Title IX. We have all kinds of pieces of legislation that we've stitched together to try and make that equality happen. But the reality is that they have no basis under the law in order to uphold them. And I want you to tell you today, members, that the most telling piece of this is that when asked, there was an interview with Supreme Court Justice Anton Scalia, and he expressly stated that while the law does not encourage sexual discrimination, when asked directly if our U.S. Constitution would prevent it, he said unequivocally, it does not. This is an issue that is long overdue. We've seen this continue to mount and mount, with the beginning of 110 women on a very snowy day here at the Capitol standing up for what they believe in with the Women's March, and that has continued through the organizations and people that have continued to surround this issue. I think it is time, members, to make this happen. We can mire down in all kinds of excuses on why it's not time, but the reality is women have waited long enough. I urge you, members, to pass this file, House File 13. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Appreciate your testimony today. And Representative Kunesh-Podein, if you have other testifiers.
No, I don't have any support anymore to speak in support at this time.
Yes, thank you so much. And we did point out at the beginning of the hearing that this bill has already been through another committee hearing before. So this is its second stop. Is that correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thanks. And this is its third. I'm seeing the sign of 3 being shown. So this.
Pardon me. It is the third stop.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, I would like to open it up now for members to ask questions. Go ahead, Chair Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And for the first testifier, Ms. Kennedy, I believe it is, if she'd come back up, I have a couple of questions. Thank you for being here this morning. How would you stated that you brought up the issue of the unused or the uninvestigated rape kits, and I want to know how passing this would take care of that problem in your mind.
Go ahead, Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you. Thank you, committee members. What we're looking at is the ability to shift our cultural norms, to say that women are important, to say that women matter. This is changing the culture, the entire way that the presence of women become validated in terms of every aspect of our existence, economic, civil, legal, and so on. So it may not address that issue from the outset, but what it does is it presents kind of a shift in what perhaps we can call more broadly customary law that will say women are indeed equal. We must begin to acknowledge the issues that are as critically important for women as for men.
Chair Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so one of the things you talked about was human rights, and the folks on this side of the aisle, at least in this committee, believe that an unborn child has a right to life as well. And since Roe v. Wade in the state of Minnesota, over 600,000 babies have been aborted. And if statistics bear out, probably half of those would be female. They would be women. And so how would this help the unborn females have access to human rights that you're speaking of?
Dr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What we're looking at is this broad perspective that women's rights will become equal rights. You're putting me in a very difficult position to try to address an issue that unfortunately becomes increasingly partisan. And what we are advocating for is an issue that says that women's rights on the broad stage of humanity, women's rights are equal rights. The ERA does not in and of itself deny or support the specific issue that you are raising.
Madam Chair, thank you. Well, all over the country where ERA has been passed, it has been used to actually increase the number of abortions. And so I would ask the bill's author, is that your intent with this bill, is to increase the number of abortions?
Representative.
Madam Chair, Representative, absolutely not.
And Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
And then would the author be open to an amendment, this abortion-neutral language that has gone on other places around the country to the ERA amendment? Would that be something that you'd be amenable to?
Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I would not support an amendment like that. Minnesota Constitution already has protections in the Constitution, and so adding anything like that would not make it a valid amendment.
Madam Chair, well, I disagree. It's happened in other states where it has worked and it's been valid. I'm really disappointed because, you know, I'm all for equal rights for women. And I think that you would probably get broader support on this ERA issue if that piece went on as an amendment. But I won't support anything that's going to increase the number of abortions. I just won't do it. So I appreciate you bringing this bill, and but that's where I stand. Thank you, members.
Dr. Kennedy, did you have a comment on that?
Yes, I would just like to remind the committee, thank you, Madam Chair, that the state did support the federal ERA bill. So let me leave it at that.
Thank you. And I just had a sort of a follow-up question to your testimony earlier. You said the United States was one of only 6 countries, I believe it was, that hasn't passed. Can you?
The United Nations Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. The other countries are Sudan, Iran, Somalia, Palau, and Tonga, which are 2 tiny South Pacific island nations. And number 6 is the United States. Relative to the issue that is being raised, the State Department determined a number of years ago that United Nations Convention is indeed abortion neutral. So this issue of the question of abortion has been determined by our State Department as being a non-issue for that UN convention. That convention is known as the Women's Declaration of Human Rights. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. I see Ms. Murphy from the audience. Would you like? I'd like to address the comments. Please step forward. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
Excuse me, I have a little bit of a scratchy throat today. I'm Kathleen Murphy. I'm Vice President of ERA Minnesota. And I just want to address Representative Scott's concerns. It's my understanding that the premise of the language of the amendment that is considered to be offered stems from a state Supreme Court, I believe it's either from Pennsylvania or Connecticut from 1981, and then possibly another case in 1998 that referred to their state ERA to further support the use of public funding of abortions. And I believe it's also in Ms. Rao's written testimony. But the state of Minnesota already has a Supreme Court ruling on this issue from 1995. So to say that this addition to our Constitution would do anything to expand existing law in the way that they suggest is kind of a moot point. The Supreme Court in Minnesota, in the decision of Doe versus Gomez, already issued a constitutional ruling that the state cannot discriminate against a legal service when offering subsidies to subsidized care to pregnancy-related services for low-income women. So this concern would not actually expand any access to abortion that Minnesota doesn't already have. So I'd also like to point out that other states that have ERA clauses have not unduly restricted abortion-related laws from being adopted and taking effect. Women's equality necessarily requires reproductive and bodily autonomy, and without control over our own bodies and our life's choices, women cannot participate as full and equal citizens in this country or in this state. Thank you.
And
Since that was directed at me, may I respond?
go ahead.
I appreciate that. Well, to the testifier, thank you for being here. Case law can change. Case law can change. And, you know, with any given different makeup of the courts, case law can certainly change, and depending on the type of case it's brought as well. So I just wanted to respond with those words. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Scott. And I would just note, too, that courts are very careful to follow precedent, and they don't take changes in case law lightly, especially when we're talking about changes to our interpretation of the Constitution. I believe Representative Baer, did you have, or Barr, did you have a comment?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair, to Representative Kunish-Pudin. My question centers around, you use the word gender in your amendment, and everything you have had, all your testifiers are testifying in favor of women's rights. Now, last year, we had one of our members who's no longer here testifying was on the floor and said there are 73 different genders. The Department of Motor Vehicles has us down as gender fluid. So my question is, why did you choose to use the word gender as opposed to sex?
Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think you explained that in this day and age, I think the word gender and sex can be used intermixed. Not everybody identifies traditionally, as we have in the past, as a male or female, and there are many different identifications, and we want to be inclusive of all folks because the ERA doesn't just provide protection for women or females. It provides protections for men and whatever gender you identify yourself as. And so we use this word to be as inclusive of our population as we can.
Representative Barr.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Could I offer the A19 amendment, please?
I think we're going to go ahead and
At the end?
do more questions.
Okay.
Yep, and we'll hear from opponents, and then we'll do
Right.
the
Thank you.
amendment. Oh, wait. Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm hearing that perhaps we should do the amendment now. So if you want to go ahead and offer
We'll just
your
go ahead and
amendment.
get that out of the way?
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
let's do it. Thank you.
So with respect to everybody being inclusive here, I'd like to offer the A19 amendment, which would add also political orientation and inclusive to gender orientation. And the reason I wanted to add that is with the laws we passed last year and changed the way we're doing voting, we have to now identify, everybody who votes in a primary election now has to identify party affiliation, and that's public information. So as an example, if you go down to LeSueur and you go into the Cambria lobby in LeSueur, there's a huge sign up there that says, "Welcome to Trump Country." So now, do you want the owner of Cambria to go and start using that and go back through public data and identify how many of his employees disagree with him and start making life difficult for them? And there's a lot of ways to do that would still be within the law. Or vice versa, do you want to use the exact opposite where we can weaponize political affiliation through all kinds of different job opportunities, media, just the people that we associate with on a daily basis. Now, we expect that in this job here to be called out on party affiliation, but if I'm a 9-to-5er or just a blue-collar guy going to work every day, or blue-collar person, I guess, going to work every day, I surely would not want my boss to know what I do in the ballot box. So that's why I have brought this this amendment forward to also include persecution based on political affiliation.
Thank you, Representative Barr. And I have a question for you. Are there any other states, to your knowledge, that have a similar constitutional amendment?
Madam Chair, not to my knowledge.
And one more question for you, Representative Barr. Are there how many years has something like this been in the process? It sounds to me like you've come up with this idea based on a law that was changed just last year. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, yes. Prior to last year's change, Minnesota's primary, you did not have to declare and record your political affiliation. You just picked up a ballot. You asked at the polling place which ballot you wanted, and voted and put it in the box. And now you have to actually, that will be a recorded, starting in the 2020 election, whether you request a Democrat, Republican, or one of the other parties that's recognized in Minnesota, you will have to declare when you get the ballot, and it will be recorded for public consumption.
Thank you, Representative Barr. Are there any other comments or discussions on his motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of the A19 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
No.
The motion does not prevail, and the A19 amendment is not adopted. Okay, let's go back then to questions that we had for our previous testifiers. I see you on the list. Hold on, there's some other folks. Representative Grossel. Chair Liebling, I believe, did you have a question for our testifiers?
Well, Madam Chair, I just really wanted to respond on, of course, nothing gets us talking like the issue of abortion. It's such a controversial and divisive issue. But I just wanted to make just a quick comment to some that were made. And one thing, I just wanted to say that, to my knowledge, nobody wants to increase the number of abortions. Those of us who are pro-choice because we believe that women should make their own decisions in consultation with their own family members in the context of their own situations. That's why we're pro-choice. We're not pro-choice because we think abortions are great or we want to increase them. So I just want to make that clear because I think that was a bit behind the question. In fact, I think the question was, do you want an increase in abortions? And not to put words in Representative Kunesh-Padin's mouth, but, from what I know of her, I would guess she would say no. And she did say no. Of course, she said no. The other thing is that I just wanted to comment, too, that, when people say they won't do anything that would increase the number of abortions, I mean, we understand that abortions happen for a number of reasons. And I'm just would say that I would be glad to have partnership among all the members for a lot of the things that we know will help to discourage abortions, like good health care, like economic opportunity, like having a clean environment so that there's a better chance that fetuses are not damaged. I have someone very close to me who had a late-term abortion because her very much wanted child had a condition incompatible with life, basically. And, these things happen for lots of different reasons. Some of them we can impact and some of them we can't. But I think that we can find a lot of common ground around doing things that, allow women to have opportunities so that they feel less need to have abortion. Increasing access to contraception, of course, is one of those. So I just wanted to make that comment. I know it's a bit off topic here, but we are talking about the ERA. We are talking about what to many of us is women's opportunity to have their own autonomy, to be able to make their own decisions in the context of their own lives. So sorry if I'm a bit off topic there, but I just wanted to say that as we got into this topic of abortion, which I guess unfortunately has to be kind of related to the bill before us. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair Liebling. And I think we're going to move on to questions from Representative Lucero. You're up next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And following up on the line of questioning from Representative Scott and to the point that was made by the testifier, there was a testifier that was up here responding to state dollars and the funding, public dollars used to fund abortion. Well, we continue to see in recent headlines in the last just few weeks on some states passing new laws to guarantee third-term abortions all the way to seconds or minutes before an abortion. We see some states speaking about post-birth. And in fact, the governor was mentioning that of a state. And so I think this is very relevant. And in fact, it's not, and I completely agree that I should say believe the bill author when she states it's not her intent, but it is the intent of other groups out there that will utilize something like this as precedent has been set in other states. And specifically, in the state of Pennsylvania, which Representative Scott mentioned, and this is from the letter distributed by Ms. Rao from MCCL, quote, its central claims are that the abortion coverage ban violates the Equal Rights Amendment and equal protection provisions of the Pennsylvania Constitution. That is the quote from groups seeking to utilize this to expand abortion. And Madam Chair, we have a number of testifiers who were signed up to testify who were not able to make it due to the unfortunate weather. So I just want to reference another letter here from the Minnesota Family Council that says, or it cites a Supreme Court ruling from 1996, United States v. Virginia, and the quote is, neither federal nor state government acts compatibility with the equal protection principle when a law or official denies to women, simply because they are women, full citizenship, stature, equal opportunity to aspire, achieve, participate in, and contribute to society based on their individual talents and capacities. This language has been tested in court and upheld countless times as the ultimate legal protection for all persons residing in Minnesota. And then, as members will see, I had distributed, there were 4 letters from 4 different testifiers who, again, were going to be here, so I encourage you to take a look at that in their testimony against this bill. Question for the bill author. Is gender defined anywhere in state statute that you're aware of?
Representative.
You know, I do not know that answer. I asked that question, somebody asked me that question yesterday, and I haven't found it. And so I can't tell you if that is the case or not.
Representative Lucero.
I would ask that question to research if they know if gender is defined.
Ms. Mullen.
Chair and members, as I don't know of a definition. There may be one in some area of statute, but the Minnesota Human Rights Act does not use the term gender as a defined term, so I don't know that there is one. There is a term gender identity that's sort of used as a protected class in the Human Rights Act, but the term gender, as far as I don't know of a definition.
Representative Lucero.
The same question would be to the definition of sex. Does that exist in current statute?
Ms. Mullen.
Chair and members, definition of sex is a term that's used in statute. It's in the Human Rights Act and in other statutes as well. What's that?
How's it defined? How's it defined?
Oh, how's it defined? I'll go grab a statute book. Hold on one second.
Okay, while she's looking that up, did you have another question?
I do.
We have several.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
And so while that's being looked up, I guess the question becomes, if gender isn't defined, do you not believe it's important to define that so the Minnesota citizens, when voting on this, would potentially have a better idea of what it actually is that they're voting for?
Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe we should work on a definition, but my working definition for gender is, to me, gender is a reflection of who you see yourself as, whether it's male, female, trans, whatever it is, that's who you are. And if that's how you identify yourself as your gender, then who am I to say that is incorrect or not?
Representative Lucero.
Well, words mean things. Statutes mean things, obviously. And so in order to remove ambiguity, we should be clear in what the definitions of words are. And if there isn't a statute, and that might be your definition, but that might not be the definition of voters. So I think it's incumbent upon us, and you as the bill author, if we're going to move forward with this, to define the terms as they are used, as the language that you're using. So, Madam Chair, I would encourage, I just see a lot of problems with this, as with the abortion, as it is being used in other states to expand abortion. And because of the ambiguity, I would encourage members to vote against this. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Lucero. And I would just note also that there are a lot of terms that are used in our statutes that we don't specifically define, that are used by their common definitions. The Supreme Court frequently goes to dictionaries. I've had that happen in numerous cases of mine where they look up dictionary definitions because we don't simply define every single word that we have in our statutes. So with that, I believe Representative Herr has a question.
Yes, and I don't think the mics are working, so doing this is probably not going to help.
Oh, yeah, I'm really. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I don't think so.
I don't have an answer to that particular because I have something else, but that triggered the fact that when I went to Brazil, they defined black as like 100 different shades of black. So there are just some words that will always have ambiguity, whether we want to create something concrete to define it. And so I don't even think that that's a possibility by us defining it doesn't mean that ambiguity doesn't exist around certain words. And so I just wanted to put that out there. The reason why I wanted to ask a question was that I really appreciate that the ERA and Representative Kunesh-Podein that you're bringing this forward. I really appreciate that robust conversation that Representative Scott has put forward around this. I feel like maybe this is a larger discussion that we have to have at another place because this is a really complex situation, and that I feel like when we talk about women's rights, and now we're talking about the rights of unborn children, that we're asking people to have a false sense of choice, right? We're saying, well, if you choose women that are alive, you're not choosing women that aren't born. If you to me, that's a false sense of choice, and they shouldn't be even put into the same conversation. It's like when an African American is talking about the rights and the systemic oppression they face. It's as if we're always asking people to have a race to the bottom, right? And then we want Asian people to say, but what about us? We're oppressed, but our oppression looks different. And then we say, what about indigenous people? And so we almost make people fight for this limited thing in which we give them this false sense of like, if you choose this, you're not choosing people, which is why I choose Black Lives Matter, because I know that that house is on fire, not mine, even though I have issues I'm dealing with. And so to ask me to have to choose in certain things, I think gives us a really wrong choice, a false choice of what it is that we should be doing right here. And what we have in front of us is an issue that impacts women who do not have equal rights. They exist right now, and the issue is pressing, and it's in front of us, and it's telling us that something needs to be done about this right now. And when we bring in other things that we think could potentially happen, we confuse the issue of that our system is built on a system in which has had centuries of systems of oppression built in against women and people of color and people who are poor, and that for us now to say, well, let's bring these other things in, which are very legitimate concerns, and I'm not saying it's not legitimate at all. But what I'm saying is that that's probably not the right conversation to be having today, and that if we cared that much, then we should look at all the different systems in which create a fact that somebody may have to consider an abortion. And that's not a conversation potentially for today, that I think that this bill is really important as its own to stand up. And if we all decide that we're standing on the side of justice, that we remember that if we want to change something, we can't operate and Band-Aid what's going on now. We have to dismantle the systems of oppression that exist right now that was created so that one specific group of people always get to benefit. And we know what that group of people is right now. And so this issue is in front of us. This is the issue that we should be voting on. And this is what we have to do in order to dismantle systems and rebuild them. And so if we're on the side of justice, we should remember what we're either choosing to uphold in the systems that oppress certain groups of people, or what it is that we're choosing to dismantle so we can rebuild this. And so I didn't have as much of a question, but more of just that I feel really passionate about this and I needed to say something. So,
thank you, Representative Herr. Chair Considine. Go ahead, follow that up, Chair.
Yeah, thanks. I know that in committee we don't address germaneness, but on the House floor we do. Let's look at the language. Shall the Minnesota Constitution be amended to provide that equality under the law must not be abridged or denied on account of gender? That's all it says. It is really pretty straightforward. There are none of these other issues of politics and things included in here. So arguments of what may or may not happen, frankly, are not germane. I did want to bring up that it wasn't really the Dark Ages, it was the 1970s. My mother was an ardent supporter of the ERA, and we're giving her a hard time. And why is this, Mom? You want to do this? What is it? You know, you have a pretty good life. What is it that you're not able to do? And at that time, my father was stationed in Georgia. My mother was a teacher, and she looked at me and said, do you realize that when I come home, your father can take the paycheck out of my hand and go cash it. Now, he would have never dared do that. Yeah, I was just floored that he had the legal right to take my mother's paycheck, go cash it, and keep it. And that's the kind of thing that we're trying to stop. That they have the same equal protection. And so I'm very much in favor of this. My mother passed away a couple of years ago, and to the very end was disappointed that Minnesota had not passed the ERA on the state level. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I would just say not too long ago myself, I was taking my children into a doctor's appointment, and I was the insurance carrier for our family, and the medical provider insisted that I put their father first because it was the male of the household instead of me, who was the carrier of the insurance program. So it's still happening, not even in that so distant of the past. Let's see, Representative Grossel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Chair Considine, while this may sound pretty nice and straightforward, this is not just about male and female, and heads us down a slippery slope when determining how to define gender. So my question, I have a question for Representative Kunesh-Podein.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Representative, why select the word gender and not just sex? To just not discriminate based on sex, like the proposed federal ERA.
Go ahead, Representative. I think we've had this question before.
Well, I guess I don't understand why folks are getting all bent out of shape on a word sex or gender. I think we, just as Chair Mahler explained, there are words that we implicitly understand. And I don't know when you hear that word gender, if it confuses you with the word sex. But gender, again, in this day and age, I kind of think it's like we're bringing everybody up to date on the current verbiage, the inclusive verbiage around folks who identify in so many different ways. Not everybody identifies through sex, and I think historically sex meant either male or female. Well, in this day and age, and there are many people that identify in different ways. And rather than be exclusive or inclusive, we're trying to be inclusive of everyone in this. I think we've said time and time again that this is not just something to support women or give women equal rights, but it also has equal rights around men as well, and any of those folks that identify in different ways. And so the use of the word gender is the contemporary word for sex, and I really think that if we all look at it, gender means sex, sex means gender, and there are many other words if we looked up in the encyclopedia for synonyms that we would find other words that we would want to use. But for this, we chose the word gender.
Representative Grossel.
So I guess your first speaker came up and was talking about equal rights for women.
Mm-hmm.
Women. That is your sex, and my sex is male. I guess I'm just not clear as to why you need to go with gender. If this is an equal rights ERA for equal rights for women, as stated by your first speaker, why not just put sex in there?
Representative, or it looks like one of your testifiers might have a response for that. Yep, come forward, Dr. Kennedy.
Well, before they do, I guess I'm just confused why you're hung up on a word such as gender and what big of a difference it makes. But, men, this bill, if this amendment goes into our Constitution, men will also benefit from the principle of gender equity, especially when it comes to men and anybody in Minnesota, because when it comes to their private lives and their roles in families, their role in society, we don't need to define whether you are a male or a female, just as your member said, why should we have to identify in a political way? There's no need to identify. So gender is an all-inclusive, encompassing word that includes everyone in our society.
Representative Grassel.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. You know, I look at this, and I look at the abortion issue, and just like is this the conversation we have today? Well, this is part of it as well. The abortion issue is part of this conversation as well. People want to distance themselves from it. If this is an LGBTQ issue, then back up. This has also been an LGBTQ issue, is what you're saying then, when you're using gender and you're using people identifying other than male or female. So with that being said, I don't agree with that agenda. Doesn't mean that that all people don't have human rights, because we all do. And I've protected those for years. So to have someone bringing legislation forward of an agenda that is other than how it's presented, I don't really agree with that. To have moral issues forced on me or anyone else who do not agree with the verbiage of this, to have the moral issues of abortion. So, words do matter, how you put things in statute, because an and or an or in certain places, or a shall or a must in certain places in statute, mean a heck of a lot different. They have a heck of a lot different meaning. And I've dealt with that for years in the courts. I've dealt with that for years in cases. So when you put gender in the bill, it means, it has meaning. It has definition. So this, to me, I'm looking at this, and this is not a bill that is solely approaching equal rights for women, as was stated.
So, Representative, I don't know if you want to respond, or one of your testifiers might want to respond to that. What would you prefer?
I would like to respond first, and then if one of them would like to.
Go ahead.
So I don't even know where to begin with this. The word gender is all-inclusive of everyone. The intention of this bill, if you look at it historically, for over 100 years, women have been asking for this to go into our Constitution in order to be assured of equal pay, equal opportunity, the ability to make their own choices in their own lives without somebody else telling them yes, no, I'm going to take your paycheck and do what I want with it. I'm going to take your children and do what I want with them. This has nothing to do, this bill has nothing to do with abortion. This has nothing to do with any LGBTQ issues. We all know that you can take any piece of legislation and twist it the way you want it to be. This bill is purely asking for the opportunity to put onto our ballot for the people of Minnesota, not for us to decide, but for the people of Minnesota to decide whether to add the words to provide equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied on account of gender. And that means not just if you identify as a male, or not if you just identify as a female. However you identify yourself, we look at you and you are equal under the law in every opportunity that is available to you. Now, if states have taken this in the past and used it to whatever advantage when it comes to the abortion laws, that's a separate issue. If Minnesota needs to go to legislation around that, you folks are more than free to create your own legislation on that. If you want something on the ballot that says you don't have to identify for a political party, go ahead and do that. That's what you can do as a legislator. But we're not here today. This bill does not address those issues because all we are asking is for equality under the law for whoever you are. And if you want to take it and spin it any way you can, you sure can. But that's not what this is. We are looking for an amendment to add language for equality under the law, and it's for the people of Minnesota to decide, not for the legislators.
So,
Chair?
members, I just want to say one thing here. We are not getting into we're not doing questions as much anymore now, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to hear from the audience because I haven't opened that up to the audience yet. And if you want to have a brief response, you can, but just to remind the members here, I'd like to keep this to questions now. We're getting close on time, and I know several of you still have questions, and I want to make sure that you all have an opportunity to ask those questions too. So you can briefly respond, Mr. Grossel.
Okay.
Or Representative.
Either way is fine. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative. You know, I've got concerns from the Minnesota Family Council, MCCL. They are seeing something in here that maybe a lot of other people aren't seeing, but it raises very, very great concerns with these two groups. And so it makes concerns in my mind as well. So with that being said, would you consider changing gender, since we don't have a definition anyplace in statute for it, changing gender to sex? Because that would clean it up. That would make it very clear what this is for.
Representative.
No, I would not.
Okay, let's go ahead and open it up to the audience. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to testify? Okay, why don't we start? I'm seeing, can you keep your hands up just so we have an idea? Yep, so we have 4 people. I believe the woman in the necklace here had mentioned that you were interested in testifying before, so why don't you come forward first? And I think I see some other folks too. I've got you. All right, come on forward, please. Welcome, and please go ahead and introduce yourself to the committee.
Good morning. My name is Kathy Burkett, and actually, I'm wondering, I have my own testimony, but I was contacted because there are a couple of others that were not able to come, and they forwarded their testimony. May I read that, please?
You can, Ms. Burkett, but I think if you can try to keep it to about 2 minutes, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Oops, I forgot my phone. Nope, I've got it. Yes, I've got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right.
I haven't done this before, so thank you.
It's all right. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. My name, again, is Kathy Burkett, and I'm going to read this on behalf of Julie Quist with the Child Protection League. This constitutional amendment is a fraud. It isn't an equal rights amendment. It's a gender spectrum equality amendment. This is the most anti-woman legislation ever seen. This bill is male domination of women at its ultimate worst. Men are now dominating women and girls in women's sports. Girls and women are now forced to shower with men and have their personal privacy violated in bathrooms and locker rooms. Shall not be abridged in law covers the spectrum of 87 genders in marriage, family, school, business, and sports. For the sake of girls and women's rights, vote no. Thank you. And then I also have one from Barb Anderson. And she says, so sorry she couldn't make it down here due to the bad weather and bad roads. So here's her testimony. My name is Barb Anderson with the Child Protection League, and I am testifying in opposition to HF 13. All across the state, an aggressive gender ideology is already confusing children and their families by distorting language and the meaning of gender. Gender has become an elastic term that can mean any kind of identity depending on how you feel at any given time. 2 years ago, Robin McHalen, a gender equality trainer, came to our school district to teach our staff about gender equality. Parents were shocked at what she considered to be gender options. Ms. McHalen gave a fast recitation of the following types of gender choices deserving of equality: straight, gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, two-spirit, same-gender, loving, pansexual, flexsexual, not straight, not labeling, straightish, straight so far, straight without obstacles, straight but stuff happens, gender bending, bigender, pangender, agender or agender, asexual, and other, so many options. This is absolute nonsense. Equality under the law for made-up genders and enshrine this in our Minnesota Constitution. This would give full government legitimacy to the entire racial gender spectrum, or excuse me, radical gender spectrum. Personally, as a woman and a former teacher, I find this to be insulting. This is an attack on common sense and an assault on the minds of our children. Please vote no on the HF 13. Let's see.
And Ms. Burkett, I think you're over 2 minutes. I would like to call on the other members of the audience, and if we have time, we'll come back to you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so I think someone over here, go ahead and come forward. And if the other people who want to testify, please just come down to the front row so we can save time walking up to the microphone, please. Thank you for coming, and please state your name for the record.
Thank you so much, honorable members of the committee and the chairwoman. I'm speaking in opposition to this amendment, and I did sign up to speak.
Sorry, that's okay. Could you please
Susan Halverson.
Susan Halverson, did
Yes.
you say? Thank you, Ms. Halverson. Go ahead.
And I'm speaking as a concerned citizen, but more than anything, I hear a lot about men and women right now. I want to talk about gender and children. I'm a former teacher, retired now, teaching in the public schools. I'm also a very active member of the NEA, the National Education Association, which is run by the democratic process. But I'm very, very concerned with this issue of gender. I've been to many workshops over the years. I've been involved in this for 30 years. On both sides of the issue, and I am very concerned, and I want to tell you why. And I'm speaking for children. This says, Section 18, equality under the law shall not be abridged or denied on account of gender. No one's talking here about science or biological fact. That's completely left out. This is important. We're talking about children here. As we've already heard mentioned, gender is whatever you feel at the present time. No one can change his or her sex. The DNA in every cell in the body is imprinted male or female. And I did bring 2 documents from the American College of Pediatricians, which will back this up scientifically. I also hear surgery can't change a person's sex. Yes, you might be given hormone blockers and then given the opposite hormone. Does your own body produce that opposite hormone? No, it doesn't. You have to be injected with it. I also hear, well, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, or vice versa.
Ms. Halverson, it's been over 2 minutes. Can you just quickly wrap it up, please?
I will, but I think we gave so much time to the in favor, and now we're giving very little time
We did have opponents that were signed up that couldn't make it today.
I did sign up.
Oh, you did?
Yes, yes, I'm on the list, yeah. But I will hurry, it's not real long.
Thank you.
And I hear them say, I'm a man trapped in a woman's body, vice versa. I don't deny that might be totally how they feel. But the proof shows that at 8 weeks gestation, 8 weeks in the womb, our brains are imprinted male or female. That's why we produce testosterone or estrogen. I just want to name some harms from this. Cross-sex hormones over a long period of time will lead to infertility. A lifetime of hormone treatments can also have profound psychological consequences, abnormalities of hormones, vascular complications, potential cancer, and other things. Just to make this a little shorter, I want to tell you, because I'm in the NEA, I'm a chair of a national caucus. And my goal is to get the facts out, scientific and research-based information to teachers on this topic, homosexuality and gender. This year, at the convention, I had a booth there for 6 days. I invite experts to come. A girl came up to me, a young teacher, and she said, "Thank you so much for being here. Please, please continue telling the facts about science and the facts about studies." She said, "I grew up in California, and I cannot even tell you what I was taught and how it messed me up so much. I didn't know who I was, where I was." And she said, "It was hell going through the journey, and I don't wish it on anyone. Please, please keep telling the facts." I personally know Walt Heyer. He did have sex reassignment surgery at age 42. He tells me that so many people contact him with regrets. And that's my concern, children. Their brains aren't ready. Until you're age 25, you really don't have a brain, and experiences do affect your patterns in your brain. So thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Halverson. I did know that you did sign up in advance. Thank you very much. I didn't know that before. Okay, one of our next members from the public, please come forward. Go ahead, and you can talk fast. Please do. Yes. 2 minutes. Thank you so much. And introduce yourself for the record.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Kelly Herwig. I have 10 years of specialized study in race, class, gender, public, and social history discourses and epistemologies from San Diego State University. I'm a resident of Mille Lacs County, Minnesota. In the book, Gender, Politics, and the State, Vicki Randall and Georgina Whalen highlight the scholar Anne-Marie Getz, clinical professor at the Center for Global Affairs, New York University, and former chief advisor on peace and security at UN Women. Citing Getz's argument, Randall and Whalen write, quote, that gendered public sector institutional failures cannot be seen simply as a result of discriminatory attitudes or irrational choices on the part of individuals or unintended oversights in policy, nor are they deliberate policy outcomes. They are embedded in the norms, structures, and practices of institutions. Despite the frequent appearance of gender neutrality, it is therefore necessary to understand not simply the nature of the structures, but also the history of social choices made by particular groups embedded in those institutions, end quote. With titles such as Women's Interest and the Post-Structuralist State by Pringle and Watson in the book Destabilizing Theory, Contemporary Feminist Debates, published out of Cambridge, the scholar can see that the notion of gender has been deconstructed in the postmodern milieu of academia, structuring in the legal language too loosely the term gender in its social implications can create a double-edged sword of the law over the state of Minnesota. The language of this proposed Minnesota constitutional amendment fails to even define the term gender, and further examination of our human rights statutes fail to deliver to the researcher a legal definition of the term gender. The troubling ambiguity of the bill's language may deliver further social injustices and perpetrate further historical commitments of systematic sexual discrimination by its failure to define gender from proper experts and scholarship. So until a consensus can be reached of a proper legal definition of gender, vague legal statutes should be avoided. Please, I need more time. A better precedent for civil rights, which I've researched, would be the broadest, most democratic model for our republic. My argument is modeling this state constitutional amendment in the language of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Do I have time to read that?
No.
Okay, so a better constitutional amendment for Minnesota based on the framework of the 14th Amendment would reaffirm the securing of rights to all Minnesotans and the blessing of liberty without abridgment to ourselves and our posterity. I humbly propose an improved and amended version of this bill to the committee to debate for our state. It is important to remember that this House is not bestowing rights onto peoples. The rights of the people and our freedoms originate outside of government in the natural law, as it tells us in the Declaration of Independence. Your job is to secure these rights among us. Here's my proposal. I'll end with this. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Minnesota, the state of Minnesota, shall not make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of Minnesota residents, nor shall the state of Minnesota deprive any person, and we can have a very good debate on when personhood will begin under the law, deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or deny to any person within Minnesota's jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. That would be a better constitutional amendment than this, as stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herwig. Go ahead, and we are running close on time here, so.
Absolutely. I'll be very short.
Thank you so much. Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Brad Leto. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Minnesota AFL-CIO, Federation of over 1,000 local union state councils with over 300,000 members. I'm here today to testify in support of House File 13. The Minnesota AFL-CIO does not take lightly placing constitutional amendments on the election ballot. We have opposed many. However, this amendment is too important to ignore. Quite honestly, I'm astounded that in 2019, we're still fighting for constitutional rights, equal rights for all. This debate, as mentioned, started 100 years ago, but actually, I will talk lesser time. March 1972, Congress placed an amendment to the U.S. Constitution up for states for ratification. From 1972 until next month here, it will have been 47 years since Congress took action. Sadly, I will say the National AFL-CIO and the Minnesota AFL-CIO were late to actively support the National ERA, but we're not. Once we did support it, we actively did so, and are proud to support this effort. Again, this debate has been raging for 47 years plus, but I would just say from 72, but it's actually longer. The truly disappointing fact is that we're still having this debate, a debate about over half the population, and we have no problem with gender or sex, but over half the population having equal rights. The time is now, the wait must be over. This amendment should go forward. The Minnesota AFL-CIO is proud to support House File 13. We respectfully ask you to vote yes to move the bill forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, and you were under 2 minutes. We appreciate that. Thank you. And members, I think what we're going to do, I know there were a few questions, but I'm going to call on the person who hasn't had a chance yet to ask a question, and that's you, Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yep.
Thank you, Representative Knush-Padin. So my question relates to the gender question as well, but in a different way. It's just very practical. The main thing I've heard from many of my constituents who have contacted me on this issue is their concerns about how this will impact girls and women's sports, both in like elementary and high school level and also at the collegiate level. And their concern about the use of the word gender is that it will make it more difficult for women to participate in sports when Title IX has made great strides in that. So if you could just address how this particular use of gender will affect women in sports, that would be great. Thank you.
Go ahead, Representative.
Well, I think my answer is that we have no idea how that will affect it at this time. The effect and the addition of the ERA in our state would have will eventually have effects, but it won't be immediate. How, again, how school districts or athletics starts to interpret it, that would be up to them. But at this point, this bill is asking for equal rights for all I just lost my thought. So I'm sorry, I don't know how to reply to that one. Again, I think there are many ways that people will interpret this bill and use it one way or the other. But again, we would hope that folks would use it to be advantageous rather than to keep another person or another group down. So I'm sorry, I don't have an answer for that specifically.
Representative Robbins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative. So I would just want to state on behalf of many of my constituents this grave concern that some have already seen in their schools about, because of concern about gender, that people who are not female by birth are participating on female sports teams, and that's very concerning to them and their ability to participate fully. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, at this time,
Madam Chair, how many people, if I may ask, how many people are left that have questions on your list?
I had a couple, I think maybe you and Lucero did, and I was trying to honor those who hadn't had a chance to ask the question
Right,
yet.
and I appreciate that. You know, I'm not doing anything tonight. I'm more than glad to come back this evening and talk more about this issue. I think it's a really important one. And I think we need to distinguish this issue of gender versus sex. We haven't heard back from House Research the definition of sex. And I think what we're feeling here is we're getting mixed messages that while the author and the supporters of this want to promote women's rights, what we're doing is conflating this issue by inserting the word gender, which has only been done in one other state. And it's actually is going to have the opposite effect, or could potentially have the opposite effect of what the author really wants the bill to do, by just stating what my colleague to my right just stated, in that someone that identifies as a woman that is a man is going to be okay. You know, they're going to have rights over and above the women that this bill is supposed to protect. So I think this merits more discussion, and I'm more than happy to come back tonight if you would see fit to lay this on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Scott. I'm not going to do that. Some of us do have committee hearings already scheduled for tonight as well, and I think at this point people have had a chance to express their concerns about this. This is the third stop that it's been through. My understanding it's going to end up on the House floor as well, so there will be another opportunity for debate at that point. So at this point, I am going to move House File 13.
Madam Chair?
At this point,
I have more questions as a result of the testimony and new statements that were made. New questions that I didn't think of the first time.
Madam Chair?
Chair Mariani?
Madam Chair, were you in the middle of making a motion? Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr.
Madam
Chairman.
Chair, I think it's appropriate to allow the maker of a motion to continue making their motion without interruption. And I want to modify your motion, so I'd like to amend your motion because I think I know what your motion is going to be.
All right, I'm going to continue with my motion. At this point, I move House File 13 be re-referred to the Ways and Means Committee.
Madam Chair, I would like to amend your motion. And I'd like to, actually, it's not an amendment of the motion. Madam Chair, I would ask for a roll call vote on this.
All right, Chair Mariani has asked for a roll call, and at this time, the clerk will take the roll.
Representative Muller?
Aye.
Representative Scott?
No.
Representative Barr?
No.
Representative Cantrell?
Yes.
Representative Carlson?
Yes.
Representative Considine?
Yes.
Representative Grossel?
No.
Representative Hassan? Representative Herr?
Yes.
Representative Johnson?
No.
Representative Liebling? Representative Lucero?
No.
Representative Mariani?
Yes.
Representative Noor?
Yes.
Representative O'Neill?
No.
Representative Robbins?
No.
Representative Zhang?
Yes.
Okay. There being 8 ayes and 7 nays, the motion prevails, and House File 13 is recommended to be referred to the Ways and Means Committee.